Today I'm going to talk you through the best City Skylines 2 maps for starting your new city. This video highlights some of the very best community made maps released in the past month for City Skylines 2. There's a wide range of locations, terrain styles and difficulty levels to explore in this roundup. Whether you prefer picturesque islands or dramatic mountain backdrops, I promise you will find something here worth trying. And if you're not satisfied with just 10 maps, you'll be pleased to hear at the end of the video, I'll be sharing an additional bonus list with 25 more maps to choose from, all uploaded to the workshop in the past 30 days. Carriacou by Secret Badger. Carriacou is a small, peaceful island in the southern Caribbean Sea, and it's part of the country of Grenada. It's often called the land of reefs because of the many coral reefs surrounding it, perfect for snorkeling and diving. So, capital city here is called Hillsborough. It's north of the mainland Grenada, and population-wise, it's about 6,000 to 8,000 people. Now you can see here from this elevated shot, there are a couple of obvious areas that you're going to be building on. Anything else has got a decent bit of elevation change on it, and if you start planning on building on any of these hills, then you are going to have to get busy with the landscaping tools. However, that said, if I was to build on this island myself, I would probably stick to those flat areas by the coast, and really focus on building something that looks like it belongs on an island of this size. If you need a bit of inspiration for building on islands, I do have a playlist with my Bali High island build. That is a Fiji inspired playlist. Do check it out if you haven't seen it before. We're going to take a quick look at the map stats here. Theme is North American, climate between 20 and 29 degrees, nice and sunny with an equatorial latitude, buildable area just 6%. So as I said, really small scale builds is what I would recommend here. In terms of outside connections, we do have the sea connections, we have the plane connections and the road, which is a mandatory one, and plenty of natural resources. In terms of the starting area on this map, you have a few choices to choose from. First up, we have this nice little bay with pretty limited buildable area, but obviously that's easy enough to expand on once you get started. If you want a bit of an easier start along the coast there, that's fairly substantial, and around the back, again, you've got a much bigger area to choose from if you find that that's going to be an easier one to kick off. And then finally, again, another compact area around the back of the island, which you can get started on. In terms of raw materials for extractor industries, this map maker has you well covered. All of the flat areas have got good farmland on it. Anywhere else in the mountains, you've got a mix of forestry, and you've got a reasonable bit of oil to get started on there as well. So you don't have to mess about too much with mods to make sure that you're getting the most out of this map. Next up, we have Tremore Mountains by Fredden. This is a fictional Northwest American mountain range with 3 separate buildable areas to build on: small, medium and large. I do very much appreciate it when the map maker leaves plenty of notes on their work here, so I'm going to talk you through basically some of the information that they've left. So we're looking at a temperate San Francisco climate, just 20% buildable area, plenty of outside connections which I'll cover in just a second. A couple of things to note, there are a few recommendations in terms of map texture replacer if you're using them. I always record these maps vanilla, but do have a look at the description if you choose to download this map, and I would probably recommend going with their recommendations. There are a few disclaimers on this map, and the most important one is that they have spent hours placing trees, many hours I would probably imagine, and not all PCs will be able to handle the amount of trees on this map. Do check it out. If it runs a little bit poorly on your particular machine, what I'd probably recommend is you go around and maybe just try and tone it down a little bit and remove some of those trees from the map. That said, I didn't have any issues myself, but I did come across a map that I am going to cover in this video that you will definitely need to take a little bit of action on if you're planning on building it. But as I say, no issues on this one for myself. So having a quick look at those city stats, as we said earlier, North American theme, climate 5 to 28 degrees and a northern hemisphere, buildable area coming in at 19% and we're well covered with outside connections. Natural resources are skewed heavily towards farmland, and we'll take a proper look at that in just a second. Starting area for this one is up along the coast. I think that makes sense. Make sure that we have all of the outside connections available to us here, and you will notice that we do have maybe some suggestions, I guess, in terms of industry layout or dock layout along here as well. But obviously that is down to you. Do whatever you like. Now I did mention earlier on about the natural resources are heavily skewed towards agriculture. Not necessarily a bad thing, but if you have a look about for the ore, you'll find that it is really just tucked away, fairly inaccessible, and that could be a fun game to play, trying to get roads in and out of there and getting things moving. But a beautiful map this one, and I highly recommend it. We're off to the party island of Ibiza. Fredden is featuring here again with his second map, and this one, quite frankly, is another beauty. Ibiza, if you're not familiar with it, is home to some of the most famous clubs in the world. But not only that, it features beautiful landscape, beautiful nature, and stunning beaches. This is a 1 to 2.5 scale map of Ibiza, but it has been modified for making things a little bit easier to play in the game. Same as the Tremore Mountains map that we featured earlier on, the map maker has made a few suggestions to make things a little bit better when you jump into this map. Not only have they given their recommendations for map texture replacer settings, but they've also made a few suggestions in terms of assets that you might want to incorporate into your own build. Unlike the Tremore Mountains map, I did have issues with this one with the FPS, and the tree cover is vast on here, it's super thick. At points I was down to about 17 FPS, so if my machine's struggling, most of your machines will be struggling as well, unless you get 5090 or something and you don't need to worry about it. But I think I would probably suggest most folks, you're going to have to thin down that tree layer to make sure you don't have any performance issues. That said, the buildable area is only 13%, so providing you can get enough FPS to run on this map, then realistically, no matter how much you can actually build on this particular map, then it's probably not going to have too much effect on your overall performance. So next up, we're going to have a quick look at the starting area, and it is in fact just this area where we are zoomed in. Plenty of farming land, connections to the road, connections to the sea. I think that's a pretty good spot. In terms of the distribution on the natural resources, you'll see all of that farmland that is obvious farmland is actually functional farmland, which is good to see. There's a few pockets of forestry here and there, and one thing I missed was a big chunk of the island, which you can see in this little mini-map, and we've got plenty of mining opportunities on the south of the island. Next up, we have St. Loken Bay, in honour of Garfield Loken. I believe that is from the Warhammer games. I don't know anything about those games, so if you guys have got a bit of lore that you want to share, feel free to leave that in the comments, give me a little bit of context. One thing I do know, however, is that this map is an absolute beauty. At first glance, it looks like a fairly straightforward one to build on, but actually once you look a little bit closer, you will find that the land is up and down and gently rolls around the map. So what that means is that you will have particularly challenging areas to get building on, and that's always a good thing for experienced players. That said, if you're new to the game, I would recommend you give it a try as well. You will find some really flat areas, particularly towards the coast, and you can get started without too many issues. Some of the best views in this map are over the water. The mountains aren't too high, they're not too imposing, and I think that potentially you've got the facility to go up there and build up in that general direction if you want. I would imagine anybody playing on this map will probably focus an awful lot around development around the water, and absolutely makes sense. If you have a look at this one, you know you're going to get a good result from it, and there are quite a few areas where you can start building here. So we've got a couple of starting areas. We've got one that is a little bit inland, no access to the water directly, and then we've got one over here towards the end of the river. I'd say for most people that might be a potential downtown or a big port, so I would probably start on the one that's a little bit further back. Now as we take a look from the back of the map, we can check out some of the stats. So European theme, climate between 3 to 34, Northern Hemisphere, and 27% buildable area, bit more than what I actually thought. All of the outside connections are all there and ready to go, and let's take a quick look at the actual natural resources and how they're dotted around the map. We can see here that they are plentiful. There's a real big mix. You're not going to run into any problems deciding in terms of what way you're going to expand the city. Wherever you go, you've got plenty of resources to choose from. Now we're going to take a look at Raffstad by Randon73. There wasn't really much of a description on this one, unfortunately, so other than knowing that it's an EU themed map, I don't really know if it's based on any particular part of the world. However, the reason I've included this one is that it's just so interesting in terms of its variety on terrain. There's no massive mountains, and you can't really call this terrain, rolling hills either. The little hills that we have almost everywhere on the map are quite jagged, quite rough, and as you have a look around here and there, you can see little almost mini plateaus, and I think that would make for a really interesting and varied city. I think you can build directly on top of a lot of these, and other ones you would just build around. So I'd really like to see a full city, a finished city if you like, on this map, and I think the topography will just be poking in and out of the buildings, and I think it would look awesome. I think it would be great. Over by the waterfront there, we have plenty of buildable area, super easy to get started, very much beginner friendly, and then as we get towards the back of the map it gets a little bit more complex and a little bit more bumpy. I think there's a few bits and pieces in the map that's looking a little bit rough, maybe some of the water edges and potentially some of the road work might not necessarily be for everybody. Some people will keep that, some people will rip it straight out. What you do, of course, is entirely your decision. One important thing to note on this map is that the natural resources are pretty light. There's a reasonable bit of farmland as we get away from the water's edge, but there's really nothing up front along the water, so keep that in mind. Mining opportunities are very limited as well. If you play mods, you might want to add a few extra natural resources to keep things ticking over. Time for another beautiful map. Now we have Embrun by Saint-Shinigi. Embrun is a small town in southeastern France. It sits on the edge of the Alps, overlooking a stunning lake, Lac du Serpent-Sun. And yes, I did practice that pronunciation. For me, this map lends itself to a medium-sized town, or perhaps maybe a few towns dotted around the place. The buildable area here is all relatively flat down towards the lake area, but obviously as we get up towards the more mountainous parts, it's going to be a little bit more and more difficult to actually build on. When I'm checking out the real life area on Google Maps, one thing that features quite heavily is a fair bit of agricultural land as you actually go up and down the mountains. And that's probably one thing I would maybe suggest that you try making yourself if you're going to be building on this particular map. So although we've got plenty of agriculture and a reasonable bit of natural resources, there is only one outside connection, and that is the road. So keep that in mind as you plan your infrastructure in this particular build. There is a single starting square, and it's not necessarily an easy one to get motoring on. You'll see that there's really only about a third of that particular square that is flat. The rest of it you would probably want to reserve for building out your farms and making a bit of money as you start your city. So a nice challenging map, this one. Let's have a look at the distribution of the actual resources. Now obviously we spoke about the agriculture. As you can see, we've got plenty of it as you go up the mountains. A little bit further up, of course, you've got those mining opportunities, and there's a fairly consistent bit of tree cover. I think I would probably rework a lot of the tree work on this one, really just to get a bit more variety in the overall look. Now we have Lake Tazawa by Saint-Shinigi. This is Saint-Shinigi's second map, and it is the first of 2 lake maps that I'm going to be including in this particular video. At the time of recording this video, this has only 95 subscribers, which is mad. It's a stunning map and definitely a hidden gem. I am willing to forgive that janky road along the water. I think the rest of the map is a stunner. And what I'd like to do is just give you a little bit of context. So Lake Tazawa is a volcanic lake in northern Japan. It's in the Akita prefecture. And this is actually in fact the deepest lake in Japan. The lake in real life is surrounded by forested hills and mountains. This one is of course as well, but the map maker has gone light on trees for reasons that we perhaps saw earlier in the video. Much like previous maps that we have covered by this creator, the only outside connection is a road, so he leaves it, or she leaves it entirely up to you to connect to the outside world. Natural resources, we have plenty going on here, and we'll have a look at the distribution just at the end of this particular chapter. Climate is European, 0 to 22 degrees, and a northern hemisphere. In terms of the starting area, we have a waterside start here. We can obviously see the road going in, relatively flat, but not completely, so again, you might have some challenges getting started here. But realistically, it's nothing that the landscaping tool can't sort out. I've done a pretty poor job of getting some natural resources here, so I'm going to bring that in just straight away. You can see that really we've got forestry all the way around, and anything else that's going to need mined from the ground or grown from the ground is away and off to the side and away from the water. A couple of little exceptions here and there's a pocket or two, but yeah, you might want to plan carefully where you're going to be building here. Another beautiful map, this one is Pacitan, the Thousand Cave, Indonesia, wonderful East Java by Mason bin Sondi. Quite a mouthful, let's just call it Pacitan from here on. So as we swing around the map, we can see a few areas that are instantly recognisable as buildable areas. Really nice suggestion here with a little harbour. I guess that is a welcome little addition, especially for newer players. You can see as we step back, we have some real vast countryside here covered in this map. Really beautiful work with the mountains. Again, we've got these sort of broken plateaus up towards the higher land, and then we've got real buildable areas towards the lower. You will see quite a lot of these maps have got this flicker. I'm really hoping we get that fixed, to be honest, because it makes it really difficult trying to make these videos when these things are flickering. Now we can take a little bit closer look at that sort of farmland down in the lower land. Very buildable, quite straightforward, little bit of river work here as well, and a basic bit of road work that weaves through the map. Checking out the map stats here, we've got the European theme, climate 14 to 32, equatorial latitude, and a buildable area of a generous 31%. There doesn't seem to be that many resources, so we need to have a closer look at that. If I remember correctly, this map only has one starting area, super flat area there as well, so very easy to get started, but it does have the road connection obviously running through, and the rail, and there's a bit of water as well. Taking a look back and a swing round, we can check out the natural resources and how they're distributed. So there didn't seem to be too many when we had a look at the stats on the map, and here we can see that it's really spaced out and there isn't really a massive amount to get stuck into here. So again, this is one where if you are planning on having resource heavy map, you might want to get the mods out and start adding some of your own. Tenochtitlan, Mexico City, by Ibiza. This is our second lake-based city, and I think you'll agree this one doesn't disappoint. I reckon this is one of the maps that using a bit of a theme texture replacer might be really beneficial. Although I must admit, the map maker has done a really good job getting the terrain down, even looking at this with vanilla textures. The idea of this map is to show you images of what the Mexico City terrain looked like and what the Texcoco Lake used to be like before it was touched by colonizers. It's a really cool idea, and I very much enjoy these sort of historic maps. Now it might look like it on first sight, but there is a fairly reasonable amount of buildable area on this one. Let's have a quick look at the actual city stats, and we can see that it's 21%. So European, North Hemisphere, 8 to 30 degrees, only a road outside connection, so bear that in mind, and we've got plenty of natural resources. The starting area is up against the lake right here, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable place to get things kicking off. Having a look at a little bit more of a wider view on the overall map, we're going to see that the natural resources are very much plentiful. There's pretty much every part of the map covered with a resource of some description. Whether or not you take full advantage of that is of course entirely up to yourself, but either way, no issues with resources and no issues with extractors. Now, although this is only the second map video that we have on the channel, you guys will probably have a fairly good idea that I do want to add a lot of variety in the maps, and I have absolutely no hesitation whatsoever in adding some maps that aren't quite realistic. So here we have a fantasy map of Westeros. That is the location for the Game of Thrones TV series, and this map is by Volian. Now, one big question that a map like this poses is, what are you going to build on it? I think there's a bit of a shortage of Game of Thrones themed assets on the workshop, unfortunately, but you never know, somebody might see this map and start pumping them out. Assets or not, what I think would be really cool to see is somebody's interpretation of perhaps Westeros but with modern buildings. So we've got King's Landing, Winterfell, Casterly Rock, Highgarden, Pike. Across the Narrow Sea, you've got Marine, Karth, Bravos, Pentos. So which one of you are going to build it, and when are you going to send me the screenshots? But in all seriousness, this map's really buildable, super flat right the way throughout. There's not a ton of buildable area, but that can actually help just bring the scope down, I think, sometimes, and you're not going to get overwhelmed with too much land to fill. Super beginner friendly, anybody can jump into this one and make a pretty good fist of it. The starting area takes in King's Landing, parts of Crownlands and the Reach, so that's a pretty nice central place to get started, and again, we've got plenty of flat land, so no big issues. In terms of the actual natural resources and the distribution of that, well, I don't know where they are. They are they're miles away. So that's not really going to help in terms of the starting area. They are just really pushed right up towards the north, which probably isn't ideal, and I think realistically, you might want to grab a mod, give yourself a little bit of a hand with that. Now, at the beginning of the video, I promised you guys a bonus list of additional maps that didn't quite make the top 10. So up on screen coming up here now is an additional 25 that I would definitely recommend that you check out if you aren't satisfied with the 10 that I've given you here. I have linked all of the maps featured in the video below, both the main 10 and the additional 25. And don't forget guys, these videos are always available on early access to members. So if you want to support the channel, Patreon and YouTube memberships are always very welcome. So that's it for me guys, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, let me know in the comments and I'll keep making them. Take care and I'll see you in the next one.